Single dad protects woman from two attackers in restaurant. 15 seconds later, they learned he was Navy. The night was supposed to be ordinary, rain tapping gently against the glass windows of a quiet corner restaurant, warm lights reflecting off wet streets, and the low hum of laughter and cutlery filling the air. But in less than 15 seconds, everything changed. A woman's scream sliced through the calm, shattering every sound in the room. Chairs screeched. A glass broke. And before anyone could process what was happening, a man in a gray hoodie had already stood up, his eyes sharp, his muscles tense, like someone who had been waiting his whole life for that exact moment. He didn't hesitate. He didn't even think. He moved. If you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Soul Tale. Your support helps bring real, powerful stories like this one to life. The man's name was Ethan Cole, a 36-year-old single father who had come to the restaurant that night for one simple reason: to give his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, a normal evening. Just dinner, just laughter, just peace. Something they hadn't had much of since her mother passed away 3 years ago. Ethan sat by the window, half listening to Lily talk about her new art project, her bright blue eyes mirroring her mother. For a moment, Ethan allowed himself to breathe. But peace for him never lasted long. Two men burst through the entrance, loud and reeking of trouble. Their voices were aggressive, their steps too heavy. The woman behind the counter froze when one of them grabbed her wrist, shouting something crude. People turned away, pretending not to see, trying to disappear behind menus and coffee cups. But not Ethan. His instincts kicked in before his mind even caught up. He gently pushed Lily under the table and whispered, "Stay down." Then, in one smooth motion, he rose, every movement precise, deliberate, lethal. In 15 seconds, the room transformed into chaos, and Ethan into something the world rarely sees anymore: calm in the middle of fear. One attacker swung a bottle. Ethan ducked, twisted the man's arm behind his back, and sent him crashing into the counter. The second lunged with a knife, but Ethan's training from his years as a Navy rescue operator took over. He sidestepped, grabbed a napkin holder, and struck just hard enough to disarm him. The blade clattered to the floor. A hush fell. The woman stood trembling, her face pale, her breath shaking, but she was safe. It wasn't until the police arrived that anyone realized who Ethan really was: a former Navy man, a father trying to build a quiet life after years of storms. Reporters would later call it instinctive heroism, but to Ethan it was something much simpler: doing what needed to be done. Still, when the danger passed and his adrenaline faded, he looked back at Lily, who peeked from under the table, her eyes wide. She whispered, "Daddy, were you scared?" And he smiled softly. "Always, sweetheart, but I still have to do what's right." The restaurant owner insisted he stay for a hot meal on the house. The woman he saved, her name was Maya, could barely stop thanking him. She had been closing her late shift when those men followed her in. Her voice cracked as she said, "You didn't even know me and you still stepped in." Ethan simply replied, "You didn't need to be someone I knew. You just needed help." Over the next few days, the video footage spread online. Ethan didn't like attention, but it found him anyway. People called him a hero. But what no one saw behind those headlines was the quiet pain he lived with, the weight of raising his daughter alone, the memories of the missions that never left him, the nights he woke up sweating, hearing the echoes of things long gone. He had learned to bury his strength behind humility, to hide his scars behind kindness. And maybe that's why, when Maya came by the next week with homemade food and a small thank you note from the restaurant staff, Ethan didn't push her away. He invited her in. Maya was gentle, thoughtful, and kind in ways that surprised him. She listened when he spoke about Lily, about the loneliness that lingered after losing his wife, about the fear of not being enough as a father. She never tried to fix him. She just sat beside him in the silence, offering warmth he didn't realize he'd been missing. Lily adored her from the start, maybe because Maya painted like her, maybe because she laughed easily, maybe because she saw her father smile again for the first time in years. Weeks turned into months, and what began as gratitude slowly bloomed into something neither of them expected. Ethan still carried his fears, still woke up sometimes to the sound of imagined danger, but now he wasn't alone in facing it. Maya and Lily became his safe place, his small miracle after years of storms. Yet life has a way of testing even the strongest hearts. One evening, while closing up her shop, Maya found a letter slipped under the door. A threat from one of the attacker's brothers who had just been released on bail. Ethan's first instinct was to go into defense mode, check the locks, scan every shadow, memorize every route home. But this time, he wasn't protecting a stranger. He was protecting the people he loved most. He called his old Navy contact, reported everything, and made sure Maya and Lily were safe. Then he did something harder. He told Maya the truth, about the missions he'd never spoken of, about the people he couldn't save, about why he never let himself get close to anyone again. Maya didn't flinch. She held his hands and said softly, "You've spent your whole life saving others. Maybe now it's time to let someone save you." That night, as the rain returned and the wind whispered against the windows, Ethan realized something profound. Being a hero didn't mean being fearless. It meant fighting for love even when you were afraid. It meant showing up for the people who believed in you every single time. Months later, the attacker's brother was caught, and the storm passed for good. The restaurant where it all began reopened with a new plaque on the wall. In honor of courage that comes without warning and kindness that never hesitates. Ethan didn't like the attention, but every time he saw it, he smiled, because it reminded him that some acts of bravery ripple far beyond the moment they happen. He rebuilt his life piece by piece. Lily grew happier, stronger, braver. Maya's laughter filled their home like sunlight after years of gray skies. And Ethan, once haunted by loss, finally found something to live for again. Not war, not duty, but love, family, and peace. And sometimes, when people at the restaurant recognized him and whispered, "That's the Navy guy," he would just shake his head and smile. Because in his heart, he knew he wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a father, a protector, and a man who had finally found home. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Soul Tale. Every click helps spread stories of courage, kindness, and hope that remind us what humanity truly means. Speech Balloon special request. Comment below, what would you have done if you were in Ethan's place? Would you have stepped forward or stayed silent? Your thoughts might inspire someone watching right now. Because sometimes, all it takes is 15 seconds of courage to change someone's life forever.